Hear ye, hear ye! I'm Dave Nelson. On this 18th day of March 2015, I call to order this, the 44th meeting, SciFi Geeks Club from GalacticNetcasts.com. Also here is my regular co-host and friend for 30 years, Brad Ludwig. Hey, Brad.
30 years. Has it been that long, Dave?
Yes.
Huh.
Time does fly fast, doesn't it?
It does. It really does.
All right, so Anessa and Matt are not here this evening, so we have brought back one of my favorite guests. And before I introduce him, I think somebody has their headphone level up. I'm getting a little feedback. I'm hearing myself.
A little bit of echo. Yeah, I heard that before, too.
Our guest, Mark Stay, do you have your volume up too loud, or?
I don't know. I'll turn it down a bit for you. There you go.
Testing 1 2. I'm still getting it from somebody. Testing 1 1 1 1. Okay, it's hardly anything, so we'll continue. Okay, so Matt and Anessa aren't here, so we brought in one of our favorite all-time guests, movie man Mark Krawczyk. How you doing, Mark?
Oh, I'm doing great. Glad to be back here. Talk some sci-fi. Always a fun time and an honor to be on the podcast. So thanks for having me back.
Oh, thank you. You saved us, and of course, people can find you with the Final Cut Movie Review Show and the Spoiler Room podcast. Is that it?
There's Spoiler Room podcast. I also host the Film Jerks podcast, which you can find on Facebook, and I'm on WeLiveFilm.com, where I'm doing 2 video segments a week there featuring horror films.
I didn't think it was possible for anybody to be busier than I am.
And you take the cake, sir.
I try not to think about it too much.
All right, so let's bring in our guest geek this week. He is the co-writer of the feature film Robot Overlords, which stars, I can't believe I'm saying this, Ben Kingsley and Gillian Anderson.
Yeah.
And keeping with the movie's 80s vibe, he's also written the tie-in novelization, which I'm hardly into. You sent it to me a long time ago, Mark, but I'm a very slow reader, so thank God we got a chance to actually watch the film, which we thank you for. Let's welcome to the SciFi Geeks Club, Mr. Mark Stay.
Thanks, gents. Thank you.
All
Good evening to you all. How are you?
Very good, and we have some fanfare for you. Hang on. There you go. We like to make up this.
We're a low-budget operation. That's all we can afford at this time, Mark. So we apologize.
No, it's fine. It's like being outside Buckingham Palace or something. It's fine. Changing of the guard.
We gotta do something for you since you're staying up late for us. It's after midnight there, right?
It's only 10 past 11, but I am normally tucked up in bed by this time. In fact, all of England is asleep now. If France were to invade, I would be our first and last line of defense, which is a really worrying thought.
It is France, though, so you could probably take them.
I think so.
I hope that they don't, because if they do declare war on England, I'm sure that they'd ally with Quebec, and I would be screwed as well, because they're across the river for me.
Oh, see.
So, Robot Overlords comes out in the UK on March 27th, and
That's correct.
In the US, what's the release date? Do you know?
At the moment, it's 3rd of July. So what better way to celebrate the US independence weekend than going to see a film about an alien invasion? It's not like anyone's done that before. So,
it's been a decade or more, so we're good. We're good.
Yeah, that's my current information, but these things change, so keep checking in. We have a Facebook page that we keep up to date fairly regularly, so any news will be on there. We have a Twitter feed as well, which is robots_overlords, and that's pretty much me and John, the director, tweeting on there all the time. So that information is good information. Don't trust IMDb. This is the thing I've learned. Being on the other side of the mirror, you realize how poor some of the information on IMDb is, and Wikipedia and sources such as that. It's always check another source. That's my advice.
Mm-hmm.
Or Goodreads, which had you down as writing 3 novels.
Yeah, there is There are a couple of other Mark Stays out there. I know there's one in Brisbane, Australia, because he got markstay.com before I did, and I'm very cross about that. And ever since then, I've made an effort to get the Mark Stay on Twitter and the Mark Stay on every social network I can possibly get. And he's I've not met the guy. He's a commercial artist, got a very good website. You know, it seems very good at his job. He's also quite religious, which is the polar opposite of me. So I am the anti-Mark Stay. So, he's the good guy. I'm the warped and twisted one. So.
Well, they say everybody's got a doppelganger, right? So maybe he's
yeah.
opposite. So do you want to walk us through the movie, how it got going, how you got involved? What's the story behind Robot Overlords?
Sure thing, yeah. I mean, John Wright, who has directed a couple of films so far. There's a BBC horror movie called Tormented, which is good fun, a good teen horror movie. He did a fantastic monster movie a couple of years ago called Grabbers, which I did, especially just after St. Patrick's Day. It's the perfect St. Patrick's Day monster movie, and it's set on a little remote Irish island. It's invaded by tentacled monsters, and they discover they're allergic to alcohol, so if you're completely soused, you're fine. And the inhabitants of this island lock themselves in a pub. It's a great script written by a great writer called Kevin LaHaye.
It's a great movie. Great movie.
It's a brilliant film, yeah.
And John learnt a lot from that, particularly in the VFX field. And the company he worked in that were called Invisible, and we got good relationships with them, particularly the VFX supervisor in Robot Overlords called Paddy Eason. Anyway, John and I have worked on various scripts, and this being the British film industry, you can earn money and you can get a reputation as a writer without ever having anything get made in this country. So, while this is what usually happens is you will make a low-budget horror, and I've written plenty of those, and somehow I've jumped the queue to make this incredible science fiction movie as my first movie. And John, it started because John had a dream, a kind of a nightmare, where he was inside and there were robots outside. And he knew that if he set foot outside, he would be vaporized. And he kind of thought, why hasn't no one really done this before? And he wrote down a sort of a 2-page pitch, sent it to me, and said, "What do you think?" I said, "I think it's amazing." And just by coincidence, he was editing Grabbers, and one of the producers in that, a guy with the best name in the British film industry, Piers Tempest, that is his real name.
Nice.
Fantastic name. He came into the edit and said, "I'm looking for a sort of family science fiction movie. Have you got any ideas?" And John said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I do." And this is, I mean, the game you play when you're trying to get a movie off the ground, it's a lot like dating. You've got to marry the script and the writer and the producer. It's like a polygamous marriage in that everyone's got to get on, and it all just locked into place in a way that I know probably that in all my career I will never have it this good again, because Piers is a great producer, John's a great writer, we all get on really, really well, and it kind of took off. And we got the British Film Institute involved, who fund independent films in the UK, and from there it started to snowball. And then one day, because I work for a publisher in London, and I write in the bar of a cinema around the corner, the Curzon in Soho, great cinema. And I'm walking down there, and my phone rings, and it's John, and he says, "We've got Gillian Anderson." And I just stopped in my tracks, and you draw up a wish list of people you want in the movie, and she was right at the top. It's like, we'll never get her. We'll get someone from an unknown or something like that. No, we've got Gillian Anderson. And then a couple of days later, he said, "We got Ben Kingsley." And that's when the real money started coming in. And I mean, it's from the first day of John sending me that email to the screening at the cast and crew screening was about 4 years, almost to the day, which is pretty fast for a British independent movie. But it's been a heck of a journey, and I've got bruises all on my arm up here where I've been pinching myself non-stop for the last couple of years, because it has just been one thing after another. And we're really happy with the results. We've had these test screenings. I mean, it is a movie for kids. basically, if you're 11, 12 years old, particularly mentally, you have a great time. It's a blast. It doesn't muck about. It's only about 90 minutes long. It goes along at breakneck pace. But it's like Jaws isn't about a shark. This isn't really about robots. It's about a father and a son. And the thing for us was always that father-son relationship. That because I've got 2 kids. John fairly recently became a father. His son's about 5 years old now, and we wanted to do a story about fathers and sons, and particularly at that moment when you're a teenage boy and you realise that your father, the man that you've always worshipped, the guy you always look up to, you realise he's a human being just like you. He's not a god. He's fallible. He's, one day he might not be around, and you have to step up and be your own man. And that's kind of what this story is really about. One of the first resources we looked at was the Roald Dahl book Danny, Champion of the World, which is a great father-son story, which is as far away from science fiction and robots and alien invasions as you can possibly get. But for us, we tried to, that's something that kept us going all the way through. And we also, just in constructing the story, when we went back to those Joseph Campbell hero's journey archetypes as well. So Ben Kingsley did a Q&A at the Apple Store in Regent Street in London a couple of days ago. And he summed it up perfectly. He said, because he said the thing that attracted him to the script was that it had all those archetypes, but instead of a dragon, we had robots. Instead of a wizard, we had his character, this twisted teacher. Instead of the exiled king, we have the son's father, who's missing. So it has all those elements in it, those kind of mythical elements in it, which is why we've tried to keep it as simple as possible, So and it's like I say, it's just fun. I think if you're 11, 12 years old, this, you'll just jump on for the ride and have a really, really good time. And the thing that might not necessarily be relevant to the States, but to the UK, is if you're 11 years old, you're probably too young to have seen Harry Potter at the cinema. So this is the first time you're seeing kids who speak like you, live in the same streets as you, having a big widescreen adventure. And we've just found that those kids project themselves onto it, and they have a really, really good time.
Those kids were awesome. It was great. It was cool seeing Gillian Anderson and Ben Kingsley, but those kids really stole the movie, I thought.
They do. This is the thing that when you come out, and everyone has their favourite one. So I think all the mums want to adopt Milo, the youngest one, because he's just adorable. The sort of teen boys tend to like James because he's wisecracking, or they love Ella because she's beautiful and smart. And I have to say a certain percentage of the girls love Callan because apparently he's quite attractive. So we did the premiere at the London Film Festival last year, and we asked if there are any questions, and a little girl put her hand up and just said into the microphone, "I have a question for Callan." Yes, what is it? She just said, "I think you're yummy." There is now a Facebook account following us on Facebook called Yummy Callan McAuliffe. So that's where that started, I think. No, but you're right, they do steal the show. They do steal the show, which is quite a job when you're up against Gillian and Sabine. So.
I have one question before we get into the news segment.
Sure.
Is there any possibility for a sequel? It hasn't been released yet, but if it does well, do you think? Because it kind of leaves it hanging for a possible sequel at the end, I thought.
Yeah. I mean, there is talk. There is always talk of these things. To be honest, I think perhaps the more likely outcome is a TV series.
Oh, perfect.
I will honestly say when I watched it, I was looking at this going, wow, I could see this becoming a series because I don't know if anyone here, well, someone in the group may be familiar with V, the mini-series V. Yeah. In all honesty, when I was watching Robot Overlords, it had that feel of V. I'm like, this is like a kid's version of V. I'm totally digging it.
It's funny you say that because it was an unconscious thing, but only recently, because I've been writing articles for the book and I love tie-in books, and I was a big fan of the tie-in, the A.C. Crispin tie-in novels to V when I was younger. I mentioned this to John, and it turns out John's a big fan of V as well. And we must have unconsciously tapped into that. And I think a TV series set during the occupation. If you find the right precinct and the right set of characters, whether or not we use those characters again, I don't know, because we're post-invasion with them now. I don't know, but that is attractive to me. And the thing is, I think the film, because it rattles along, we've only skimmed the surface there. I think there's putting people in that situation, in that occupation situation, where they have to make difficult choices. I mean, I'd love to see more of a character like the Ben Kingsley character, who joins the volunteer corps, who becomes a collaborator with the robots, and see the dilemmas that they have to go through and the choices that they have to make. And I think it would just be huge fun, really, really good fun. But it's only talk at the moment. There's lots of talk. The thing I've learned over the years, particularly in the British film industry, is that until you're standing on set and someone yells action, don't believe. Even wait until you're in the screening room and it's been cut and put together. So I'm not counting any chickens yet. But that would probably be the best solution, I think.
Movie Man Mark, do you have any questions before we move on?
Just that I was really impressed with the special effects group. It was the same group that did Grabbers, correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah, Invisible. And they crop up in things. They've done various Harry Potter movies. They've done the last couple of Bond movies. They've done like John Carter of Mars and stuff like that. Did the last Muppets movie. And the way it works in visual effects, because I'm sure you, like me, stay to the end credits and you'll see that there'll be 5 columns of various visual effects houses, and they do bits here and they do bits there. The thing with Grabbers and Robot Overlords is it was all them, and I think they took particular pride in that. And they, on a budget of roughly tuppence halfpenny, they've pulled off nothing short of a miracle.
I will say, because in all honesty, I mean, when you see the trailer and that, I'm sure people might see the title or whatnot and might think, and no offense to anyone, but might think Asylum type. But the special effects in this were very impressive. I will say, for an independent film like this, I didn't, on all honesty, expect the robots and everything look to it as good as they did to the implied budget that IMDb has.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's the other thing being on this side of the mirror. You learn is you never read the comments on YouTube. Because, you're looking at a trailer, it's heavily compressed. The title, which we fought to keep, perhaps we could have changed it. I don't know.
I like it. I
love it, but you're right. People are going, Sci-Fi Channel make a movie of the week now. Is that kind of? So there are some quite nasty comments, and it's. I think you have to judge the film as a complete thing and not just in a compressed trailer on YouTube. And there are some really cool effects in this, and it's great performances as well. And the whole thing comes together great. I'll tell you what is great as well is I love Christian Henson's score.
The music. Yeah.
That was the other thing that really stood out for me, was the music. It was top notch.
I was lucky enough to be there the day they recorded it, and that again give you an idea of the budget. The day they recorded it, this is John Williams' thing where he takes over Abbey Road for a week or whatever. They worked really fast, and I play guitar and can mash out a few chords on a keyboard, but these guys they turn up, they're singing the sheet music, they look at each other, kind of nod, and they're off, and they're playing. I just incredible musicianship. But one of my favourite cues, there's a lovely bit where they have a voice quiet, and it's a bit like that Ligeti bit in 2001. You go, and you've got a day in the life crescendo, and it's just so well done. I hairs are standing up my arms now just thinking about it, and the score is terrific, and it is being released the Monday before the film is released, and the Grabber score as well, which hasn't been available for a long time. I believe that's coming out at the same time. So, and Christian Henson, he's very much his own composer, but you'll hear influences from things like Jerry Goldsmith and Aliens and stuff, and James Horner and stuff like that. So it's a cracking score.
Brad, do you have any questions?
I just wanted to say I really think that we're seeing a golden age for independent films with, and I'm going to throw this out as an example, like the television program Flash is the visual effects and for the budget that a TV program, a freshman TV program has, the effects are top notch. And I really, in what you're describing with Invisible and with other things that we're seeing, I think that we're seeing a lot more big budget look type films in independent films as well. And would you say that? Do you feel that this is like a golden age? Do you think of independent films?
I think so. I mean, you're seeing a great fragmentation of the movie market generally. I mean, when you compare us to the Marvel movies, John always said they're the aircraft carrier, and we're a tiny dinghy sort of in its way.
Mark, you're not the aircraft carrier; they're the helicarrier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we and the thing is, when you go and see you go and see Guardians of the Galaxy, and you see Groot, and it's groundbreaking stuff. It's genuinely, that is incredible. I've never seen that before, or never seen it done that well before. And John was very conscious. I mean, when we were writing it, because of what John had learned on Grabbers, in my naivety, I came up with a scene where a robot came bursting out of the water, and he's like, I learned that interaction is expensive, which is where we got the idea of the kids controlling the robots, because there was an idea that they could ride the robots and use them against the other robots, and John said, yeah, we could do that, but it would look terrible. It would look really bad. To get that kind of thing right takes an ILM level budget, and we just didn't have it. With the best one in the world, we just didn't have the money to do that because it takes so much time and processing power and manpower and what have you, and we just didn't have that. So I would watch my kids play in the square with their friends, and they play Star Wars, Harry Potter, Doctor Who, and there's a lot of this, reaching out with their hands, and it occurred to me that if you could kind of concoct a way for a kid to control a robot telepathically or through some kind of link, that solves our interactivity problem. They don't have to touch the robot, and that saves us a fortune. And B, I think it taps into a childhood fantasy, which is if you're 4 foot high, and you've got a robot that's 2 stories high, and you're controlling that robot. Wow, if I'm 11 years old, I am there. That idea really, really appeals to me. So, it's that thing of necessity becoming the mother of invention, and it came up with a great story wrinkle. It gave us something, to get our teeth into as well.
And sometimes less is more, Mark, too. I mean,
yeah,
absolutely.
Look at the first Alien. I mean, there was hardly any effects in that movie, and it was an awesome movie.
Yeah. Well, Jaws is the other great example. The shark never worked, so the shark was off screen, and it was just so much more effective. And with us, the robots, the design of the robots is simple and basic, but that led to John and I creating this kind of ethos, which is the robots are pragmatic. Why make elaborate Transformer-style robots that fold in on each other and is very, very complicated, and again, very expensive. Whereas the robots we have in our movie they're very simple, and the reason is because before they invaded, they studied us, so they realized that we are afraid of people with big muscles and tiny brains. So the Sentry robot, which marches up and down your street, is enormous with a tiny, tiny lamp-like head. They also discovered that we react well to children. So they create this robot called the Mediator, which is a childlike robot, which we're supposed to warm to and be affectionate to, but of course it has this uncanny valley thing, and it turns out to be the creepiest robot. It's actually one of these things when we have Q&As after with kids, the hands go up and they go, and what's the question you said? What is the Mediator about? It's like it's given me nightmares, man. I feel so sorry for Craig Garner, the actor who plays it, because people think it's a CG creation, and it's not. And B, children will see him in the streets and run, crying to their mothers.
What scared me, Mark, was the auto-tune. It just gave me Kanye West flashbacks. And
Yeah, that voice. The idea is something I go into more detail in the novel, which is the voice is made up from the voices of people's consciousnces that have been uploaded into the robot network. So it has an extra layer of creepiness behind it as well.
Ooh, yeah.
One more thing before we get into the meat of the podcast is the novel. I loved how you threw in that you fit in the I for one welcome my Robot Overlords. That was
yeah, they wouldn't let me put it in the script, so I had to get it in there somewhere. And who better to say that than Mr. Smythe as well, the ultimate collaborator. So yeah.
All right, sounds good, Mark. Let's get into things here. Before we get into the news, let's ask this week's hypothetical question, and we'll just go around. What is the most plausible way for robots to take over the world besides how they did it in Robot Overlords? So let's let Brad be the first to answer.
Take over the world as in to own the world or own the people in the world? What?
Well, basically just come and just dominate everything. I mean, we're defenseless against these robots, or maybe they're already on the planet and somehow they develop sentience and take over us that way. So what's the best way for robots to take us over?
Well, quite honestly, wipe everything out. I mean, if you look at it this way, resources are limited on the planet, and if the robots wish to manufacture more of themselves or repair themselves, they really shouldn't have anybody competing for those same resources. So keeping other intelligent life alive on the planet would be a waste of those resources. So quite honestly, and as cutthroat as that sounds, you wipe everybody out.
Okay. All right. Good answer. Mark,
who made Brad morale officer?
Free hugs for everybody.
All right, Movie Man Mark, how do the robots take over the world?
Through by tapping in and using our social devices against us. Be real easy now that everybody's connected through the smartphone and such. You know, the robots just find that right frequency and could brainwash us all in a very short amount of time, or just take over our culture gradually just by becoming popular on social media, and you know, going that route to where the point of where we do welcome the overlords because we think this is a really great idea because they're so cool, and I think by using our own technology against us, they could enslave us and use us to do whatever they want, transform us into energy, or make us build their stuff for them because we're cheap labor. But definitely using our social media and our devices, because everybody's so linked now, I think it'd be very easy, especially with us all being networked, you know, which kind of came across in Robot Overlords. But just using our devices against us, I think the robots could do it easily because they'd be able to interact with our technology fairly simply, more so than with a human.
All right.
Yeah, there was a line in Robot Overlords where someone described the robots as they're like Google or Amazon, but robots. And the lawyers made us take that one out. So, but yeah, I think that's a really good premise actually. You know, you could argue we're halfway there already because Google and Facebook they know everything about us anyway. Amazon has been, you know, tracking your every click for the last 15 or whatever years they've been running. So, you know, they know more about you than your family does. There was I think it was in The Onion, they did a joke thing about, you know, the wife, this woman who gets more satisfaction from Amazon emails than her husband. You know, it's recommending books and movies, and she's like, oh, Amazon really gets me. And it is a kind of basic artificial intelligence. But going back to the original question, I think I saw Ex Machina, the movie. Have you seen that yet? I think it's
seen the previews for it. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
Really good movie. Really, really, very, very thoughtful film. And without spoiling it for you, you come out of the cinema thinking they could already be here. They could already be strolling around, you know. And the other book I really admire is Robopocalypse, which that the premise is that there is a central intelligence, I think called the Archon, which it's set in a near future, and it just turns all our devices against us, and I can. There is a plausibility to that. There is, I think, I don't, we've posited robots coming from another world because that's fun and it gives a sense of scale and alien thought to it. But I think, we are becoming more and more reliant on devices and machines, and they're great. Well, it's that great line from Blade Runner, isn't it? Replicants are like any other machine. When there are benefits, not my problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that says it all, really.
Exactly. All right. Good point. Okay, let's move on to, before we do the news, let's pause real quick, and we've got a new feature on the Sci-Fi Geeks Club, and it is, hang on one second, I can't find it. It was supposed to be up here, but it's not up there.
What?
Huh, okay. Okay. All right, before we jump in to the news, we have a new feature. It's Ryan Murphy and this week's Galactic Gaming news. So Ryan, take it away. And that's where I'm going to put it in post. So
there you go.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Let's get into the news here. Top stories of the week: new Interstellar text adventure game available. Let's do a show of hands. Who's seen Interstellar?
Brad bows.
It's an audio podcast, so you actually have to say something.
Not I. Sorry.
Please show of hands. No, Movie Man Mark's seen it. Brad is not. Mark Stay, have you seen it?
I have indeed, yes. I've enjoyed it very much.
Okay, well now you can play via a text adventure game. Now, Brad just began, or just kicked off, premiered his new podcast last week called Adventure Party. So, would you be interested in playing this game, Brad?
Sadly, because I did not get a chance to see the film, I might be at a little bit of a loss, but I would be interested in checking this out, for sure.
The digital version of Interstellar is available now. You can download it now. The Blu-ray comes out March 31st, so think about it. Basically, it works in your browser. It's a text adventure. It's a prequel to the film in which you assume the role of one of the 12 Lazarus astronauts who ventured through the wormhole to assess the planets found on the other side. Is that too much of a spoiler? You kind of already knew that, right? Before you guys saw it.
That's pretty much in the trailer, yeah.
Okay. So the game begins as you land on the planet you're about to explore and awaken from your cryosleep. You can play the game at interstellarmovie.com/adventure. So it's kind of a way of promoting the film now that it's available via home video. So check out the movie and then check out the game. It's fun. It's like an old-fashioned 1980s text adventure game.
Look out.
It reminds me of the sadly late, recently departed Terry Pratchett wrote an excellent book called Only You Can Save Mankind, which is these kids end up going into a computer game, but one of the kids writes a game called Alpha Centauri, where it's just basically stars coming at you for about 20,000 years or however long it takes to get to Alpha Centauri, and at the end of it some text comes up, says, "Well done, go home."
I bet you that was really easy to create.
Yeah. He's 11-year-old kid, whatever.
That's funny.
Recommend that book. It's a good book.
Okay, so speaking of books, Lucas Books reveals the details of the first Star Wars novel linking Episode VI to Episode VII. Last week we talked about this on the Sci-Fi Geeks Club, that they're releasing 20 books between now and when Star Wars The Force Awakens comes out. And this is the first one that they've actually revealed the plot. It's called Star Wars Aftermath, and it takes place right after the destruction of the second Death Star and the apparent defeat of the Empire by the Rebel Alliance. And according to the publisher, rumors are flying that the Emperor and his enforcer, Darth Vader, are dead. A new government is forming to replace the Empire, but the galaxy is a big place, and the fallout of this cataclysm will affect different worlds in different ways. Does everyone accept the fall of the Imperial rule? So basically, the galaxy's in limbo. They don't know what's going to happen, and somebody's going to step in the power vacuum of the galaxy.
20
comes
books.
Comes out in September, which I don't think I had an argument with my wife earlier that September is not a whole lot of time. This is the first of 3 books in a series before the movie comes out, and the first one comes out in September. That's not a whole lot of time.
You know how long it took me to read Ender's Game? I'm sorry, I'm not a big reader. I'm more of a movie guy, but man, even 20 books, that's from now until Christmas. That's going to be, yeah.
Well, it's okay. There's 20 books, but they're not all like adult novels. Like some are kids' books. There's different genres of books, so it sounds like you don't have to read all 20, but it sounds like you should be reading these 3, the 3 that kind of bridge the gap between episodes 6 and 7.
So does that mean the Truce at Bakura, I think it was called, the Kathy Tyers novel, that was about the immediate aftermath? So that's all gone now.
All those books are like washed away. They're not canon anymore.
They're legends, they're called, or legacy or something. Disney pretty much went through all the extended universe and said, no. We'll pick what we want. They picked some characters and some stories that they liked, but the rest of it, Disney said it's no longer canon when it was canon at one point, and that really set the geek world on fire for a while. But then they're like, no, we're making another movie, and they're like, oh yeah, we're making a Boba Fett movie. Okay, we'll forgive you.
Well, as far as we know, they're making a Boba Fett.
As far as we know, right.
Yeah. There was a story that I did not include in the news, but they announced the name of the first standalone movie. It's called Rogue One.
Rogue One, yeah.
Yeah, we're not quite sure what the plot is yet.
I'm hoping it's a Wedge story, personally.
Wedge?
Wedge rocks. He's the only guy that survived all 3 movies, and he was there for the destruction of both Death Stars. He had a longer life than any of the admirals on the Star Destroyers. So I mean,
okay,
I love Wedge.
Refresh my memory. Who's Wedge?
Wedge was the guy. He was the guy that accompanied Luke on the run in the trench. He was the one that had to bail out because his engine got fired. Wow, am I a geek now? His engine got hit by a TIE fighter bolt, and instead of blowing up like Porkins, he managed to pull out. And before he could do the final blow, and then Wedge was also the first guy to take out the first AT-AT in the Empire. He's the one that came up with the tow cables with the. He was the first successful guy with the tow cables. And then he was the one that accompanied the Millennium Falcon in Jedi with Lando, and he was the one that took out the tower on the west side before he exited the building, and Wedge was like gone. He was like out in a docking bay and kicking back in the bar before the Death Star blew up. That's how fast he was out of the Death Star. But
you can also see him. You can also see him dancing with an Ewok in the final celebrations as well. He's played by Dennis Lawson, who in a bizarre twist is Ewan McGregor's uncle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
So he's Obi-Wan Kenobi's uncle.
Nice.
I really hope they bring him back for Episode 7. Just throw him in somewhere. I mean, that would be the ultimate awesomeness.
Out of all the minor characters, I think he's the one that's got the biggest following. Because if you pay attention, he was at every important point, and he was just badass. So
there was a great Marvel Comics story about Wedge being left behind on Hoth. After the events at the beginning of The Empire Strikes Back, and him surviving for a while, and it was a really cool story. He is one of those characters that he's a bit of an open book. He's a bit of a blank page, so you can do a lot with him. There's not much backstory there, but he is a hotshot pilot and a cool character. So.
He's like the Rodney Dangerfield of the Star Wars universe.
I was going to go more with the Bear Grylls of the Star Wars universe, but okay.
Drinking his own urine on Hoth. So.
Yeah.
Anything to stay alive.
All right, so Star Wars Aftermath comes out in September. You can order it now. Its pre-orders have started for that thing.
Huh.
All right, Brad Pitt's Plan B scores Stephen King's teleportation tale, The Jaunt. It was a short story first published in 1981 in some magazine called The Twilight Zone, and then later in 1985's Skeleton Crew anthology. and it's about a 24th century tale that follows a family about to embark on a voyage to Mars using a crude teleportation technique called jaunting, and the hazardous tale or travel method requires anesthesia, and there are strict rules to follow to prevent something happening during transit. That doesn't sound like it's very safe.
Not with a eerie intro like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem as cut and dry as like the transporter on Star Trek.
No.
No. Of course, things could happen there with the transporter too, but.
Oh yeah, we've seen it happen. We've seen it happen a number of times. Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Somebody died on the pad, and then a couple of other weird things happened in other series.
Yes.
So jaunting, because I think Stephen King took the term jaunting from Star's My Destination, the Alfred Bester novel. And if I recall, it's been a while since I read it, it didn't require any technology. It was a kind of technique. It was something you learned, almost like a psychic power. So maybe it doesn't require a teleport or anything like that. It's yeah. So maybe, I don't know. I've not read the King story. I've read Star's My Destination, but
well, add that to your list, Mark. If you have time to read. I just wish it was called Jaunty. That'd be fun.
Going for a jaunt.
All right. So one final news story. Sam J. Jones. Do you guys know who that guy is?
Oh yeah.
The original Flash.
Yeah.
My son had his photo taken with him at a London Comic-Con a couple of years ago. It was the greatest moment of his life.
Okay.
I find it on my phone. Hang on.
I am starting to sense a theme because I know a couple other British people, and they all like Flash Gordon.
Oh, we love Flash Gordon.
Yeah, it seems
Thank
like
you.
Americans hate it and the British love it.
I love it.
Well, it's full of British character actors, so we understand it on a whole other level. There's a part, you know where the young man puts his hand into that kind of slot and it stings him and he says, "Kill me," or whatever he says, the pain or whatever. That's an actor. Well, I say actor. Is a guy called Peter Duncan, who was presenter of a much-loved TV show called Blue Peter, which was the show that you'd watch when you got home from school, and they would talk about how to make, I don't know, Thunderbirds rockets out of toilet rolls and cereal boxes. Sure. And then Peter Duncan was known for being a daredevil, so he'd be bungee jumping and parachuting and stuff like that. Funny enough, Bear Grylls connection. I think Peter Duncan was chief scout of the UK before Bear Grylls was.
Wow.
He was one of these guys. He was the one of the team who was always doing crazy stunts or whatever. And then suddenly he crops up in Flash Gordon. And this for you guys, it would be like, I don't know, someone from Sesame Street turning up in Star Wars. And of course, you've got Timothy Dalton in there as well, and Brian Blessed, and lots of great British actors in there. That it's a bit like, we have this tradition of pantomime over here. It's kind of the pantomime version of Star Wars. And I love Star Wars more than anything, but there are times when only Flash Gordon will do. And it is an absolute blast. I love it. Absolutely.
Well, good news, Mark, because according to the original Flash Gordon, they were supposed to originally do kind of a reboot and set it more based on the 1930s movie serial version of the story, but now it turns out that Sam J. Jones will be back as Flash in the Flash Gordon. It sounds like it's going to be a sequel.
This isn't a good idea. This is a terrible, terrible idea. Some things should be left alone. I don't know. I having seen Ted, the movie, I'm not quite sure Sam Jones is. I don't know. Maybe if he cameos or something, perhaps. I mean, there was the Mark. I don't know if you guys seen the Mark Miller did a comic book recently called Starlight. Which was kind of it's well worth the read. He's the guy who did Kick-Ass and stuff like that. And Starlight is kind of it's a Flash Gordon. It's clear we couldn't get the rights to Flash Gordon, and it's kind of a Flash Gordon character in his late middle age, you know, and he's come back and from saving the universe, come back to America, and no one believes him. So he's this middle-aged guy, and his wife passes away, and one day a rocket ship comes out of the sky and says, "Do you want to come and save the universe one more time?" So it's kind of like The Incredibles. Mr. Incredible is out of shape and everything, but he goes back onto the front line. It's a good, fun story. But I doubt they'll be going in that direction with Flash Gordon too.
No, it sounds like from the interview in this story with I think Den of Geek,
Yeah.
That it's going to be more of like he's going to be like the uncle or the father of the main character, or something along those lines.
Okay.
Oh, it didn't need a sequel. That's a movie that doesn't really need a sequel or a reboot because you're not going to be able to do it right. There's something great about Flash Gordon. I've talked about this with other people on other podcasts. It was a comic book movie made before comic book movies were cool.
Yeah.
But you know, if that film came out now, it would have a huge budget and just all kinds of promotion because, like Mark said, there's huge stars in this film. I mean, the amount of star power in this film is amazing. And then the production design is just over the top. And there's no way they could capture that again and do it right, I don't think. I think the closest that ever came to that kind of feel was Fifth Element, in all honesty, far as the look. You know, if they got kind of the vibe of Fifth Element for the sequel, I could maybe be behind it, but they did the story. The story was done. I didn't see anything need for anything to go past that first film, and they got to get Queen to do the soundtrack again if it's going to.
I also think you have that the John Carter of Mars thing, which is John Carter of Mars. The original story was pioneering, but has been ripped off by everyone. And so when it came out, it was kind of, well, I've seen all this before.
Thank you.
And I think we'll have the. But anyway, look. This is my son with Sam Jones at Comic Con a couple of years ago.
Oh, wonderful.
So yeah, that is all. The bike is made out of cardboard boxes. We were talking about Blue Peter earlier. It's not a real prop. It's literally some cardboard spray painted silver. So but he was a nice guy. He was a very nice guy. So yeah.
All right, so there we go. That's the news for this week. Let's jump into the discussion topic. And since we have Mark Stay on, the writer of Robot Overlords, we thought we would discuss our other favorite movies about robots taking over the world, not written by Mark Stay. I found a pretty comprehensive list. I actually got this from a number of websites, but I'll just kind of run down the ones I got here. You guys make a comment about them, add your own. Just feel free to kind of it's loosey-goosey time here. So the Terminator films. Are we fans?
Oh. You mean the two of them?
Yeah, there are only two.
The first two, absolutely. I see that we're all in agreement that really there's only two Terminator films and the rest are just rubbish.
3 is Salvation, right? That's the third Salvation?
No, there was a RoboCop. There was a Terminator 3. And then there was Salvation.
I saw the third one the other weekend, and I realized how bad. I forgot how bad it was.
Although in the nuclear holocaust, I'm a bit of a nuclear holocaust fan. And the bit in Terminator 2 with the bomb going off terrified me as a teenager, and I thought the nuclear holocaust at the end of Terminator 3, bummer of an ending, but I thought that was done really well, much like the bombing of Caprica at the beginning of Battlestar Galactica. The scale of that was pretty, but you had to wait a long, long time to get there.
I guess the problem I had with 3 was 2 was such a powerful message sci-fi film that struck so much chord that you came out with 3, which pretty much negated everything in 2. I mean, it really, it pretty made everybody sacrifice.
It actually kind of reminded me of Highlander 3 with Mario Van Peebles as the Kurgan Part 2.
Yes.
It totally wiped everything out before, yet you had some of the same elements that were just done poorly. And it was just, it's like they peed all over, the previous movies. It was just terrible, just terrible.
how do you guys feel about the underlying theme? Like, as a robots taking over the world type movie, do you think they were successful?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it can pertain to today what we were talking about before as far as Skynet and that idea. I mean, now it'd be even easier than ever.
Yeah. I think it was terrifying in the 80s because it was like a sci-fi thing that, you know, the nuclear clock was close to midnight. You know, the U.S. and Russia and everybody had nukes, and boy, anything could happen. And there was just that one thing that beyond human control that could tip the scales, and that would be it. So it was terrifying at that level. But you look at it now with how close we are to having like some AI breakthroughs, and we already have some minor things, and there are more things that are computer controlled now than there were back in the 80s. So it's terrifying on a different level, that it seems even more possible that could happen.
It's more relatable now, definitely.
Yes,
because there's chips in everything that we carry.
Yeah.
Okay, so iRobot.
Will Smith.
And Converse trainers. That's the only thing I remember about that. I just had this urge to buy Converse shoes after that.
How well do you think they translated the original story? Do you think that was a terrible version of that story, or?
Well, the trouble with a lot of classic novels is they were written in the 50s, 60s, 70s, so to do a literal translation of them it just wouldn't hold up. You would have to do something to modernize it. I think the themes of the original novel came through in the movie. I think Will Smith is a really charismatic actor. I remember going to see it. I was on holiday at the time, took my nephew and went with my father-in-law, and we had a good time, but it wasn't, unlike the Terminator movies, it wasn't groundbreaking, it wasn't earth-shattering, but I had a blast. It was good. If it's on the TV, I'll watch it,
It's one of those movies.
Yeah.
I'll watch it. Yeah. I got a few of those.
They went for more action over substance, I think, in it. They tried to put both, but they definitely went more of the action-packed entertainment value rather than maybe some message, with iRobot. But
pretty good not special effects. Pretty good digital effects.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because isn't it? Is it Alan Tudyk who plays?
Yes.
Is it Sonny? Yeah.
Voice of Sonny.
Yeah. He's good. Very charismatic robot.
Yeah. But he's such a versatile voice actor and all-around actor.
Yeah.
Wait a second. He was Wash in Firefly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did not know that was him doing the voice. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Another one around that same period was AI, artificial intelligence. That was Spielberg, right?
Well, it was Kubrick, and then it was Spielberg coming in to finish it up.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a point in the film where you're like, oh, this is really good, and then what was I keep forgetting the actor's name, the little boy actor's name, Haley Joel Osment.
Yes.
And when he freezes, and you're like, oh, well, the movie's done, and then they thaw him out, and I'm like, what the hell is this? This is horrible. Why? You should have just let him go and it was sad, but this part that you added on is just crap. It just really felt like they were trying to give you a warm, sweet hug at the end, and it's like a lot of you watch other movies from other countries, and American cinema really needs to give you a warm hug at the end of the film. You know, as much as I might joke about German films being like you get to the end and they just like punch you in the face and just leave you bleeding in the street, and that's the end of the film. That's what AI was. It should have just been left where, he has this adventure and it ends tragically, but it ends. And that should have been it. But they wanted to give you that warm fuzzy at the end, and it was hollow. It was really hollow.
I'm going to be controversial here. I liked that ending.
Really?
I think it was the natural conclusion of the story. I think he had to find his own people, and he found his own people in these robots that found him at the very, very end, these artificial intelligences. So, and as I understand it, that was part of the original Kubrick story as well.
Really?
So, because a lot of people say that, oh, that's Spielberg being all mushy, but actually, as I understand it, that was part of the original Kubrick story. And it's one of those films, I think, like I had a similar reaction when I first saw it, but when I go back and watch it again and again and again, it kind of makes more sense to me. And I think that's typical of every single Kubrick movie, is when you first watch them, 2001, you're like, what the hell is that about? And I saw 2001 recently for about the umpteenth time at the cinema at the BFI in London, and it's finally just starting to make some kind of sense to me. And likewise with Clockwork Orange and all these other movies, they reveal themselves over time. And I know it's Spielberg directing, but I do give it another chance.
Can we all agree, though, that 5 minutes of nothingness on the screen at the beginning still sucks? Still.
To me, when I think of a Kubrick film, The Shining does not leave you feeling warm and fuzzy at the end. No. 2001, you're left asking yourself a lot of questions of, well, one, what the hell did I just see? Two, that space baby's freaking me out. Three, there's so many questions as to what mankind is about, and I think that's part of the message of 2001, or at least my interpretation of it. But when you get to AI and he meets the creatures at the end, to me it just didn't. I don't know. I think Kubrick, and I think there's an end, and it's harsh, and to me the ultimate Kubrick film is The Shining. Maybe that's what flavors my vision.
Yeah. No, I understand that. But it's I had a similar thing with Cloud Atlas, where first time I watched Cloud Atlas, I was completely befuddled by it. Then I read the novel, and I've watched it 3 or 4 times since, and I love it now. It's a really ambitious movie that just doesn't reveal itself on the first viewing. You need to go back again and again and again. I think AI is one of those movies.
Okay.
It's not perfect. It's not either Kubrick's or Spielberg's best film. But I think it is. Again, like Robot Overlords, it's not about robots. It's not about artificial intelligence.
No, it really felt like it was a coming of age or finding your place in the world kind of film.
Yeah. There's this whole Grimm's fairy tale side to it.
Yeah.
Pinocchio, of course. Pinocchio is a big influence in that too.
All right, so the classic War of the Worlds, that had robots, right?
Now we're talking about the original one and not the Steven Spielberg one, right?
Well, you can take whatever's your favorite, Mark.
Oh, good, because I'm talking about the old one.
Oh, we can go all the way back. Well, no, I guess the first movie version was, what, 1960s or 1950s? Right?
George Powell, it's 1950-something, I think. With really great, groundbreaking effects for the time, and a really creepy movie, and a really great atmosphere to it as well. It's a good, relentless film.
It holds up, too. I mean, if you watch it today, it still looks pretty good.
It's because it's all practical effects. Practical effects age a lot better. 53, I think it was, that it came out. And I love the original one. I love the story. I've got the audio play on vinyl, the original one that was broadcast on vinyl. And, I really like that idea. And I think what really gets me is the fact of how it ends. It's not the humans that that cause it. The humans think they're so powerful, and here they end up finding out that they're the weakest thing in the universe. But yet, then you have this really powerful force in the universe that still gets taken down by the smallest thing in the universe. And just a lot of great messages there for me. I think it is one of the better takeover world ones, and there are robots involved in it, so I guess you could take that as well. But I think there's just a lot of great messages in there about humans and their perception of where they are in the universe as far as, value versus what we actually are. So.
Just the hubris of man, believing that we're so incredibly powerful, yet there are things that we don't understand that could easily squash us.
The hubris of man is one of the great themes of science fiction. I mean, it's watching Ex Machina again recently. It's exactly that. It's a guy thinking he can create life and control it in a way that a god might, and he can't. He just can't. It is one of the great themes of SF.
All right, moving on. I think one of the most popular robot movie series is, despite the fact that the acting is at the best from a lot of the actors and actresses, Transformers, the Transformers series. I guess we can put them all under one umbrella, right?
Yes.
Or do we want to just not pay attention to the last few? Just go with the first.
I'm reserving my comment.
Well, I would be interested to get Mark's view of that.
Yes.
Having written a story that, or put something together that is coming out shortly, that I'm sure, and you mentioned before, you can't being an independent film, you can't do a practical effect or a digital effect of having a machine fold on itself and look like a cassette tape. That's not economically feasible. What are your thoughts on Transformers?
I've seen precisely 1.5 Transformer movies.
Did you watch Dark of the Moon?
I saw the first one, which
good.
By and large I enjoyed. Apart from I kind of fell out of love with it when they had the Allspark, this thing that all of these evil robots are after, and they're out, I think, near the Hoover Dam or something. And I said, well, we've got to hide this thing, so let's take it to the most populated city on the west coast of America. Okay. And that's just so that Michael Bay can blow
something up. Absolutely.
That's the Zack Snyder effect, right? That's the
yes.
Let's have Superman fight what's his face in the middle of Metropolis.
Yeah. So, and I've seen snippets of the other ones, but I've not liked what I've seen, mainly because it does seem to be that thing where, okay, we've got the money, we've got the budget, we've got all these resources, let's just throw everything on the screen. And I think it's from what I've seen of the stories of the subsequent ones, it's not had much in the way of heart, and that's the thing that we've tried to put into Robot Overlords is to give it a heart and give it a story, whereas this is all wham bam thank you ma'am, which I think, if you're dealing with IMAX and 3D and trying to get bums on seats and impress people, that's fine, but you can include me out. It leaves me cold. I saw a clip. It was just on TV, and I don't know which one it was. And there was a sort of a ruined cityscape, and there were just robots randomly picking people off. And I just thought, this is like a kid with these toys flicking them over.
Sure.
Which I guess is on theme, because it's based on the toy range. But it just kind of left me cold.
To me, there was too much going on in Transformers movies. Like, things were moving way too fast. Maybe it's just my terrible eyesight and being old, but it's not like that about those movies. Things are just crazy on the screen. You can't focus on one thing because there's so much going on.
My big problem with it is the source material for an animated film had some great storylines and great moments and great things they could have pulled from there, and they didn't. They went for the flash. There were some great stories in there, some great relationships between the bad guys, between Megatron and Starscream, and you don't get any of that banter, and that was some of the best conflict that you had. Starscream always trying to get in the throne to take over the Decepticons, and him and Megatron always butting heads, while they're fighting the Autobots, they would butt heads. And they missed so many opportunities for that. Plus they could have made a lot better animated versions, CGI versions of the cartoon versions of the film. They don't need that many parts. I'm sorry, And then in the second one, we have a huge robot that's just like 5-story robot with a big huge wheel plowing through Japan or wherever, or China or wherever they were fighting it. I'm like, really? There's just, for me, I think the cartoon did it better as far as grounding it, because even though it had the kind of global scope, it didn't overdo it, at least for the first beginning seasons, overdo it with the robots. They were plausible than they were later on.
Well,
And these movies just went for flash. There's absolutely nothing to them.
Also, Mark, the focus in the movies was too much on the human beings.
Yes.
I think in the cartoons, they were very much focused on the robots, and I think that's what made them unique as far as stories go.
Yeah, all your main characters, all the main plot points most of the time involved the robots. 90% of the time, the people were like the accessories rather than the other way around in the movies, where we focus on the human storyline and the robots are the catalyst. And it's like, you missed a great opportunity here, I think. And they're doing 2 more, so God help us.
All right. Okay, so moving on, X-Men: Days of Future Past. There was robots a little bit involved.
Oh, the Sentinels, yes.
Yeah, Sentinels.
Yeah, a great concept from the comics. Having it was not Bolivar Trask, but one of the Trasks creating these huge robots with the capacity to learn. And have them sense and fight, detain, destroy mutants. And then later on, through the course of, at least in the comics, things, of course, get out of hand with them. So it was interesting to see some of the things that they did for the film to make them more adaptable, to have them be more powerful and do the job that they were meant to do or designed to do. That was very interesting.
They had a great design as well, that kind of Harrier jump jet vertical takeoff kind of thing that they would use to take off. It had a nice kind of 70s vibe about it as well. It's the kind of thing Jerry Anderson or someone might have designed in the 70s, but just never had. There you go. Yeah. But just never had the money to do.
Looks like Iron Giant.
Now there's a robot. There's a
movie.
Oh, that was
that is a 5-star movie. Yeah.
I didn't put it on the list because we were talking about robots that are taking over the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Sentinels look good. Yeah, I like them. They serve their purpose. They made sense for, people can't fight them themselves, so they'll make machines that will do it for them, sort of thing, and then they get out of hand. So.
Of course, they always get out of hand.
Of course.
Okay, 2 more. Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. Yeah. Has anybody on the panel actually seen this film?
Not me,
yes.
No.
I have. Yes.
It's been a while, but yes.
What a shock! What a shock, Mark.
I know.
So explain to us, Brad and Mark, because Mark Stay and I have not seen this. So explain.
Pass me by, I'm afraid. Yeah. I'm aware of it, of course, but I've not seen it.
Kind of going back to the theme of the Sentinels, creating people being afraid of something that they cannot control, so they create a machine to take care of the problem for them. And that's really at the heart of what the Sentinels are. The humans are afraid of the mutants, so they create a machine, a device that they think they can control and have them take care of the problem. And that's really what Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla is. They create a Godzilla version of their own to control, and granted it doesn't really get out of control, but it's a device that the humans create to deal with something that they don't understand. That is very destructive, but at the core of everything, Godzilla just wants to be left alone.
Yeah, everybody forgets
People
that.
keep poking that bear with the stick, and they go, "Oh, why is he attacking us?" Well, you stop poking him with the stick.
I wish there was.
This wouldn't happen.
Do you think somebody online has done a meme incorporating the who was the actor that was sitting on the bench? Keanu Reeves, right?
Yes.
Yes, said Keanu.
Yeah. Has
Yeah,
anybody
Keanu.
done that with Godzilla? Yeah, Godzilla?
There is a Godzilla haiku Tumblr website,
Yes.
which is amazing. You know, haikus that deal with basically told from the perspective of Godzilla. It's quite wonderful. If you find it on Google, look for Godzilla haiku. It's amazing.
Have you guys seen the latest Godzilla, the one that came out last year?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I did. I loved it, and I'm glad it was successful enough for them to spawn a sequel where we'll get a lot more monster on monster action. But for the monster action that we did get in here, even though it was not a huge amount of camera time, it was enough to go, I want to see more for it. The human element, a lot of people pick on it. I didn't have real problem with it. If you ever watched an actual Godzilla film, especially some of those middle ones, Godzilla really doesn't show up that often. You get the minor characters, you might get the minor monsters show up, but usually Godzilla doesn't show up till like the end, and then fights him for a while, then does a Voltron only with his atomic breath, and says, "Okay, you know what? I'm done with you," and just instead of blazing sword, it's his blazing fire, and he just takes out whatever monster it really is.
There's human drama. Monster shows up. Godzilla cleans up the mess. Everybody goes home.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good formula. They've done it a number of times.
Yes. Variations, but yeah, so the new one was good, but Mechagodzilla is a good one. That's one of the better older Godzilla films for the story about people making the Mechagodzilla thinking it's going to be their solution and them being wrong because they're humans. So
well, again, and that also comes down to the hubris of man.
The hubris, yes.
A lot of the monsters, well, a number of the monsters that Godzilla ends up fighting are because humans are mucking about with stuff they don't understand. So.
Okay, final one on the list, Metropolis. Have we all seen it?
Yes.
I have not seen it in its entirety.
I was talking to Dave before we started the show. I saw, I think, the 80s version, which was scored, I think, by Giorgio Moroder.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That aside, like H.G. Wells with War of the Worlds, it's had such a profound influence. It's got the story and the message still relevant today. You can see Ex Machina in it, completely. And just the design is incredible, absolutely incredible. It really, really does stand the test of time. I really want to see the new version now because I've heard great things. So.
There's a new version of it because I remember the 70s one, or the 80s one was the supposed as complete as we can get it.
No, they found new material and it was remastered recently. And it's on,
really?
I think it's on Blu-ray now. Yeah.
That's the one that I saw. It was actually on cable one night and we watched it. And that
Oh,
was the first time I'd seen it. It was really good.
I'll have to check that out then because I love the story of Metropolis. I always love it. I'm even though I'm heavy into films, I'm heavy into films, and I always love watching those early films and seeing what they do. I mean, we were talking about special effects here in CGI and Transformers, but what they did back then was just amazing for the technology they had because you have a huge film camera and you can't do a whole lot. And they got very creative with camera work, angles, shadows, lighting, and I just love it. And Metropolis has that whole class warfare theme that could still apply today. So
those sets must have been just massive too.
Yeah, I mean the sets on that are just huge. The little miniature city that they design. I mean that's not CGI. They had to build.
Yeah.
That
there are, and I did stumble across them a while ago, but there's a few websites that have put together like some of the images of them working on the movie and the actress being put into some of the costume and things like that. And for that time, good Lord, I bet you people thought that he was either insane or touched or something because what he managed to put together is just. Stands up so well and looks so so amazing.
Wasn't one of those pictures of her in the costume? Wasn't she smoking a cigarette, Brad?
I
Yeah.
believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw those pictures too.
Yeah, and her design, I agree, her design was amazing, especially for back then. I mean, you know, you watch it now and you go, oh, okay, and you don't realize, no, this was made, when this came out, they had not done, you know, something like that. And that's what I try to think of myself. That had to be wild to sit in a theater and see her transform into a robot. You know, and then you got the whole Frankenstein theme in there as well. You know, with the scientist creating his, you know, in his creation, not exactly going again the way you expect it to. Showing you even, you know, back then that theme was around.
Yeah, I mean, when you put it in that historical context, just a few years before, people saw a film of a train coming into a station and thought it was coming through the wall, and you know, so just a few years later, they're seeing this incredible science fiction landscape, and it must have been like looking into a crystal ball, you know, into the future. And the thing is, so much of it has come about, and this is one of the great things about science fiction is you look at the communicators on Star Trek and the pads they use in Next Generation, and how those designs have undoubtedly influenced the technology we have today. And you look at Metropolis. The other great film is Shape of Things to Come as well, which doesn't have robots in it. But you look at that and the designs in that, and it's, well, there are shopping malls. Those are our housing developments now. That's what our world looks like because of that incredible movie design. And that's one of the great joys of science fiction, is it can have a big influence. Hopefully we won't really be living in a Blade Runner environment, but you know.
I love Shape of Things to Come. That was a great sci-fi movie that I think some people forget from back then. But yeah, Metropolis is a classic. I watch it every year at least.
We have a comment from the Hangout. It comes from the Infomaniac. They say Robot Overlords is the kind of film that would have been made in the 1980s. I can't wait to see it. It looks so unique.
Oh, thank you very much, Infomaniac. You're right. I mean, the 80s was a huge influence on us, and John and I are, you know, children of the 80s. We grew up watching those great Amblin movies, and we wanted to set one in the streets in the UK and give it the kind of heart that, you know, a film like that Super 8 had as well. Again, much bigger budget than we have, but the idea of a gang of kids having an adventure. We're getting comparisons. There was in Britain we had a series of films in the 70s made by the Children's Film Foundation, which were ultra low budget films, but they had that kind of Famous Five vibe where it was a gang of kids working together to have a great adventure, and that for us was the core of this. You know, it's just, we want kids to watch it and go, yeah, I want to be those kids. I want to have that adventure.
All right, so there you go. Those are our movies, other movies not written by Mark Stay about robots taking over the world. Before we wrap things up, we have a new feature from Daryl from the UK, Daryl Johnston, and it's time for Who Knew? All right, Daryl, thanks for catching us up on the latest Doctor Who news. It's always interesting to hear what's going on as we get ready for the new series this fall.
Yes.
Looking forward to it.
I've just heard, actually, a friend of mine, her husband makes life-sized TARDISes.
Oh.
Yeah. And he does them to order. I'll have to give you guys a link because they are incredible. And he'll do a Tom Baker one, and he'll do a Colin Baker one, and he'll do, you know, a David Tennant one. And the Doctor Who people saw this, and they've asked him to make a half-size one for a show they've got coming up. And they're transporting it to Cardiff over the next couple of days. My friend, I'm friends with his wife I used to go to school with, and she's saying, you know, we're carrying this TARDIS from the house to the car, and we're a nervous wreck. So he's going to be, it's incredible. He's a Doctor Who fan, and he's going to be part of Doctor Who history.
That's awesome.
Something that started as a hobby, and he's now going to be, he'll be doing conventions for the rest of his life. You know?
They've really reached out to fans as of late because the new opening, the theme, the whatever you call that, that was done by a fan that just happened to put something together, put it up on YouTube, and somebody saw it and said, we want to use that for our opening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing the original and then hearing later on that they were going to do something based on that work, and I'm like, God, as a fan, could you imagine your fandom, your love of a show having an impact and influence on the show that you love, and just that's got to be mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's the world we live in. Snakes on a Plane. Snakes on a Plane was the film the internet built. They were going to have a PG-13 Sam Jackson film, and everybody was like, yeah. Someone made a fake audio trailer with some Sam Jackson audio bites, and they're like, it took off viral, and suddenly they made it a rated R film, and everybody went to see it, and you just have a blast. But it was influenced by the internet. It was influenced by fans, and I think a lot of shows are taking from that. They're not letting them dictate everything, but like you guys said, they're picking and choosing. They're picking things that they think will fit, and building a TARDIS or using the opening. I think that's using the social media creatively, because a lot of these people, I mean, for me, being a fan, I would love just one of my bits to be in there. I don't care if I got paid for it or not, in all honesty. But to say, hey, this TARDIS I built was in a show, that's just wild,
It's a story for the grandkids, absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark Stay, for being our guest geek this week. Before we
thank you.
Real quick, again, when does the movie come out? We'll find more information about it. Everything, real quick.
Okay. The movie is out in the UK on the 27th of March, 3rd of July in the US, and we're doing various festivals around the world as well. So keep an eye out for us there. The book is available now. And like all good movie novelizations, there's tons of extra material. The way the book came about was I was asked to write backstory for the characters, and it just evolved from there. So you've got stuff from before the war, the invasion, all sorts of background stuff. There's a short story in here that tells you about how the Mediator came about. There are my shoot diaries, so there's all sorts of behind-the-scenes stuff in there as well. And it's available on Kindle on Amazon. At the moment, there's some sort of glitch where if you go on the Amazon.com page in the US, it says it's not out till September. That's hooey. It's available now, so get it from somewhere else, like the Book Depository or Amazon UK or something like that. It's available in the UK now, and we're talking about Poland and Polish names, Mr. Krawczyk. We just sold the Polish rights as well. So
wonderful.
There'll be a Polish edition in April, I think. They're translating it very rapidly now. But yeah, it's like I say, it's. I grew up reading the great Thai novels by people like Vonda McIntyre and A.C. Crispin and people like that, and they always took something you loved and just let you live there a little longer, and you found out more about that world. The two things complement each other, and that's what I've really tried to do with this. And it's tie-ins are odd because they're not quite children's books, they're not quite adult books. They live in their own strange little world. So anyone reading age 10 and up will enjoy it. And there is an exploding head about 8 pages in.
Mark,
Sold.
I'm enjoying
it's on my wish list.
I'm enjoying mine, and thank you for the autograph. That was pretty cool.
My pleasure.
All right, so you can find out more about this podcast and our other podcasts by going to the brand new galacticnetcasts.com, including the brand new podcast, Adventure Party with Brad Ludwig.
Thanks for the plug.
No problem. You can watch our episodes by going to youtube.com/galacticnetcasts. Search for us on iTunes and Stitcher as well. And please, if you go on iTunes, leave us those 5 stars and a positive review, because that helps us get more listeners. But the most important thing that you can do to get us more listeners is to tell your friends, family, and whoever else will listen. Whoever you think will like science fiction talk every week, tell those people, and we appreciate that in advance. All right. I'm Dave Nelson, and on behalf of Brad, Anessa, Matt, Mark, and Mark, I call this meeting of the Sci-Fi Geeks Club adjourned. We'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Thank you very much, Mark.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Bye, Dad.
And there's Matt.